guys, it's me, and today it's a book birthday for House of Falling Embers, and it's really exciting. So the topic of this video is probably going to sound a little weird, but I thought in celebration I would talk about my struggles to settle on a project, which has been super difficult to the point that I could not settle on a story to work on to save my actual sanity. So I'm just gonna start off in January. So I came into this year like 100% sure I was going to work on this one book. So it was like a new adult like supernatural horror, and I've been wanting to write this book for a while, and I was super excited. But at the same time, I also came into the year needing to finish editing my third book that came out in April, Whisper, and so I needed to finish editing that and polishing that and getting all the things ready for that. And so I was like, okay, when this is 100% done, then I will shift my focus to this next book, because I was trying to be good and not juggle too many projects because it was making me crazy. So I get that finished, and like literal crickets in my brain. I could not sit down and write this book. I don't know what was going on. I was just like violently against it. And I'm a very character driven writer. I'm a very gut driven writer. And so if my gut is unhappy, then I cannot write. If the characters are not cooperating, I cannot write. And I don't know what the problem was, if it was my gut or if it was the characters. It was probably a little bit of both, but I couldn't move. So I switched projects and I decided to work on this paranormal sci-fi. And it had all these plot holes in it, and so I concentrated on fixing these plot holes. I got everything smoothed over. I thought everything was good to go. And then, again, could not move for literally anything. And at this point, I was starting to get frustrated because I had actually been going back and forth on what to work on next since I finished the first draft of Whisper, and so it had been going on for some months already. But in any case, I decided to pick up this kind of dark fairy tale retelling. And I was super excited about it, like I am about everything, and I just didn't want to write. And I was like, well, you know, editing is hard work, and even though I enjoy it, you know, it's still taxing, it still makes me tired, I still need a break. And so I took a break, I watched some Hulu and some Netflix, and then, you know, just like tried to recalibrate everything. And then I got to the end of February, and I was like, okay, we're going to start writing in March. You know, like, end of story, no more excuses. March 1st comes, and I cannot get this story to move. I have no idea what to do. I'm staring at this blank screen, and I don't know what to do. I wrote a paragraph, like, sometime in February, and I loved it. And I was like, this is a great start to the book. It has all this energy. I'm excited, and could not get it to move. I think I mentioned this in an earlier video this year, but I don't remember. Or maybe I talked about it on my blog, but in any case, I talked about how, like, I had this little notebook, this little 4x6 notebook, this notebook, and it has all, like, these fairy tale ideas in it, but they're all from, like, 6 years ago. And so, at the time, I hadn't looked at this notebook. Since I got this desk that I'm currently sitting at, I think it's been about 4 years. At the time, I didn't realize that I'm the kind of writer that needs to bake things for a while, and so of course they were all falling apart because I was just getting those ideas. But anyway, I decided to go through the notebook to see if it would help me with this other fairy tale retelling idea, and then inside of it I found the Hansel and Gretel idea, and it just immediately, like, it went from being like this historical story that was falling apart everywhere to, like, I knew everything. I knew what the antagonist wanted finally. And, like, just everything was coming together, and I was so excited about it. And I was just like, can I please write this book? And I was like pacing around my house like I do when I'm being a little crazy, and I was like, you know what, you can do whatever you want. So I just decided to write the book. And I'm kind of a slow starter, so when I sat down to write, yes, it was moving slowly, but it was moving, and when I read over it, I was happy with it. So everything was good. I thought all my problems were solved, and then House of Falling Embers, it was coming together, and I was so in love with it. And then I started reaching the end of the book, and I started panicking because I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to write next? So I finished the first draft of House of Falling Embers, and I took a little break from it, you know, so I can like come back to it with like fresher eyes or whatever. And during that time, I tried to pick another idea, and my brain was so crowded and overwhelmed. It was like, why don't you write this idea, and why don't you write this idea? And at one point, I had like 11 or more ideas that I was trying to decide between. It's kind of a good problem to have, but it is a problem. So I tried my best. I used a decision maker app to try to settle on an idea 2 or 3 different times. I had a writing friend. I texted her like my top 5 ideas and like a 1-sentence summary of them and kind of why I was stuck, and then she picked 2, and then one of them was like going to be a rewrite of a story that is pretty much in the story graveyard, and I really never want to look at it again. But you never know what can happen, and so I'm open, right? And then the other idea was this fairy tale, a retelling idea that I was trying to write earlier in the year. So I decided that I was going to work on that. End of story. So I went back to my 1 paragraph that I had written. I finished the first chapter. Something didn't feel right. That's all I can say. It just didn't feel right. And so I edited it, like, no joke, about 3 times, and each time I felt crazier and crazier. So I rewrote the chapter from scratch, and then I edited that a couple times, and I still didn't like it. So I went back to the drawing board, and I'm like, okay, what am I missing? What am I overlooking? Do I have the motivations right if something's off? Do I have the location right? So I rewrote it for a 3rd time, moving the location, and it still didn't feel right. So I edited this a couple of times, and I was like, okay. I felt like I was one more edit away from like waking up in a puddle of tears on the floor. Like, it was that bad. And normally when writers say stuff like this, I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Just write another book, right? And that's usually my philosophy when I'm struggling this bad. It's just like, freaking pick another idea. You have 100, right? So I went back to the drawing board again, and I was like, okay, this one thing is off. Why don't we fix that? Change locations again, because it would make so much more sense. And then I rewrote it from scratch for like the 3rd time, which means it was my 4th intro, and I got through it. I edited it. I didn't like love it, but I was like, you know what, there's nothing wrong with it. So I wrote the first chapter, the 2nd chapter, I started the 3rd chapter, and I was just like, I can't do this. I don't know what the problem is. I just cannot do this. And so this time I got my brother to help. I wrote the numbers. I don't know how many numbers there were. Maybe there were 5 on a piece of paper, and then I wrote my ideas down in a random order on another piece of paper. So I told my brother to assign a random number to those story ideas, and then I would pick a number. He shuffled the numbers. I picked the number. I'm like, whatever it is, that's what I'm going to pick. End of story. So I picked this paranormal sci-fi idea, and I was like, all right, I'm going with it. It's fine. So anyway, meanwhile, I was editing House of Falling Embers and, you know, doing all this stuff to get that together. And so I put the story aside. I'm like, don't worry about anything else. Focus on your edits. And so I did. And when that was 100% done towards the end of August, then I was like, all right, let's take a couple of weeks off. Let's take the rest of the month off, and maybe like the first week of September, and like, you know, just calm down, watch some Netflix, like relax, you know, because again, like writing the book and getting all the things together, you know, it's a lot of work. And again, I super enjoy editing, but it's taxing. So I took my 2 weeks off. And then I was like, all right. So I opened my document and I wrote a sentence, and then I was stuck. And then a week later, I wrote 2 more sentences, or it was 3 sentences, I don't know. And I was still stuck. So, you know, another week passes, and I tell myself, you know what? The end of the month, you know, September 30th, I'm like, you just sit down and try to get this chapter done. Try to write a paragraph. Just write something. And I was like, okay, I could do that. I could totally do that. But then, like, the Friday before it gets here, and I freak out. I start freaking out. And so I'm like talking to my sister, and I'm like literally like every couple of sentences like talking about this show I started watching on Hulu that I don't know if I want to continue. And then I was talking about my book, and then I was talking about something else, and then I was talking about the show again, and then I was talking about my book, and my sister's like, okay, you're changing topics again. Okay, you're talking about what now? And it was just like, it was just really bad. It was really bad. And I'm like, I cannot believe it is October almost, and I am still dealing with this problem. And it's like, I don't want to be like unappreciative that I was able to get a book done, you know, this year, but it's kind of like, I thought I could get like at least 2 books written this year, and I can still get another book written this year because I did settle on the project. The problem that I was having with the paranormal sci-fi is that it was not giving me what I wanted. And it's like House of Flying Embers. It's like, I love it, but it's not like a very violent story. And not that everything I write has to be violent, but I notice sometimes if I go too long without writing a story that has like some just like action and like some blood, I get kind of weird and antsy and depressed. And I don't know what that says about me, but I'm not worried about it. I just go with it because like it's totally fine. But at the same time, I feel like you have to have years like this. You have to have years where you're recalibrating things, where you're rebuilding things, and you have years where you are less productive. This has just been like the year of me just feeling overwhelmed and being attacked by my own ideas. But I thought since, you know, House of Falling Embers was born out of this chaos that is my brain, that it was a good topic for today, because this next idea, again, is kind of being born out of the chaos that is my brain. And I was like, okay, that gives me some hope. So maybe instead of saying this is the year of writing overwhelm, maybe it's just the year of like writing chaos. In any case, I'm so excited that I was able to publish 2 books this year, and I'm excited that this book came together, and I love it. Like, I love everything. If you want to see my release date post on my blog, I will link it below, and I will see you guys in another video next week. Yeah, bye.